Hey everyone, welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Master Sfazian, host of Bleacher Report's hit show Untold Stories. Today's guest is Jay Williams, entrepreneur and host of The Boardroom. The former NBA player and former Duke star has had a very successful career after basketball, and we're here to talk more about it. Please welcome Jay Williams.
Thank you, Matt.
What's up, Jay? How you doing?
Doing good, brother.
Good, man.
Doing good.
Always respect your work. It's great to finally meet you in person. Great to chat with you.
Thank you, man.
Want to talk to you about The Boardroom. How did that concept come about?
I got a call from Rich Kleiman a couple of years ago. So one of my best friends growing up playing AAU basketball is a guy named Scooter Braun who, worked with Kanye and manages Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande and all these incredible acts. And we always stay connected with life and things that happen business-wise. And he's like, yo, I got this guy, Rich, who we met a long time ago at a Method Man party back in L.A., like in, 2001. And Rich got on the phone with me, and we just automatically hit it off. Like, I've always had this knack. I love business. I grew up, my dad worked at Amex for 15 years and worked at AT&T. But I wanted to leverage the platform because I never thought I was going to actually get to the league. Right? I always wanted to be an executive, a CEO. So then once I found out I got blessed enough to get good at basketball, I'm like, oh, wait a second. I have a chance to have an incredible earning potential, but I want to leverage the position I have on the floor to really branch out and to do business, right? To own something where my business becomes an annuity. I can have income for the rest of my life, just not from playing a sport. And so obviously my life worked out the way it did, but when I got connected to Rich had already been thinking that way, and he had been thinking that way for Kevin, with Kevin in collaboration with him. So Rich kind of hit me off the idea. I'm like, hey, I kind of do things like that anyway, but I haven't got a chance to do it at scale. And he kind of gave me the plan, and we built it, and here we are in season 2 on ESPN.
What has the reception been to that show? Because it's when you're trying to do something different in sports, and I've experienced that as well with my show, when you're trying to do something that the audience is not typically accustomed to doing, and particularly when you're talking about sports business in a way that people are not accustomed to doing, how difficult was it to kind of get an audience on board? And now that you're going into season 2, how has that continued to snowball effect?
Well, it's still a work in progress. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it, because we all love to roll up our sleeves and grind anyway and work. I got asked this the other day on the network. They're like, well, how's it different than LeBron and The Shop? And I'm like, well, it's extremely different, right? And
they probably watching your show.
Yeah, well, Mav and LeBron, they kill it with The Shop, and they do really well. I think they hit more everyday issues on bigger topics that are more evergreen, where I think we do, my thing is, and Rich talks about this way too with Kevin, like, how are we providing a tutorial for the next? Like a guy like Imani Bates, like a lot of people may not know that name, but like he's a rising junior, and he's one of the top players in the country. So our thing is for kids like that, or the next to be great at football, the next Patrick Mahomes that maybe nobody talks about, when you watch our programming, how are you saying, oh, I didn't know what the word scale meant, or I didn't know, I can get in equity inside of a company without actually investing capital in something. I didn't know what the word deliverables mean. I don't know what a stock portfolio is. They never had chances to be around guys who were billionaires. Like we did one first season with Steve Ballmer and Josh Kroenke. People may not know who they are, but Josh Kroenke, his family owns the Rams. They own Arsenal. They own a lot of big-time teams, right? And same with Steve Ballmer. I mean, he bought the Clippers for, I think, north of $2 billion, okay? And how they're building new facilities and saying, well, how are you guys jockeying for tax abatements? And like, whoa, okay, they look at me different. Like, yeah, tax abatements, And so I think providing that kind of insight to helping younger athletes think about themselves as a business and what are the right questions to ask. Even you may not know all the answers, but how do you put yourself in a position to win and succeed? That's what this programming is all about.
Your network spans the 17-year-old and the 60-year-old billionaire.
Exactly.
Do you feel like you are, in a lot of ways, to bridge the gap to the 16-year-old to either further understand the 60-year-old billionaire and the 60-year-old billionaire to further understand the 17-year-old athlete or 16-year-old athlete that's growing up in this Gen Z society?
Well, that's like, they call it business to consumer, B2C. So if I'm a business, every business goes through this way. I want my consumers, I want to appeal to a younger demographic. Right, so in order to appeal to a younger demographic, I need to pay attention to how you're dressing, what you're into, what your analytics say. I'm paying attention to all those trends. So, and if you're younger, you want to be schooled by somebody who's built businesses before, who's been able to invest in the right kind of vertical, or who makes the right decisions as you're coming into money potentially, or if you want to make money, if you're a hustler or an entrepreneur. So I do feel like that's a gap. And for me, that's a lot of my life, right? Like, I was the number 2 pick in the draft. I got really lucky to make the money I did, but I didn't have the longevity of a career like Kevin. I didn't play 10 plus years in the league. I got hurt early. So me getting hurt early, I had to go back to a job like ESPN and make $35,000, $40,000 a year for 4 or 5 years, traveling across the country, sitting in the back of planes, and people recognize me, like, hey, aren't you the guy that got drafted? You're like, yeah, but I'm also calling, Mississippi State versus, Tennessee, Ole Miss, right? And nobody's even watching the game in order to understand my craft.
How'd you handle those moments?
Oh, it was challenging, man. It was humbling, but I also thought it was an incredible gift as I was going through those tumultuous times, because it provided me with reality. And my new reality was that, yeah, I had played, but I was no longer making millions of dollars by playing a sport. So, one of the things I always kind of prided myself on was my education. And graduating from Duke in 3 years was something that saved my life. I owe that to my parents and to Coach K. So I always thought more holistically about my approach. And it took me a while to pick up the pieces. But then I recognized after, working for an agency for a while, studying the CBA, I met a guy named Reed Bergman, who back in the day became my agent, was like, you need to be on TV. And that's when I started to try it. And that's when I fell in love with the camera, because it allowed me to connect to audiences, to people. And I like doing that anyway. And then I recognized, oh, this could be what my basketball court used to be, but I can flex a different muscle. I can flex my intellect, and I can understand things, and how can I properly explain what the CBA means or what a player is going through. And I think the evolution just kind of took part from then and there.
It's felt so natural.
It didn't feel natural on being on TV. It felt right. It didn't feel natural.
But the way, from my perspective, as someone that grew up watching you, especially during the college basketball days, and obviously you've evolved to the NBA, it just felt so natural when you were on camera, because even when, you have these standards of professionalism or how you should be as a professional on broadcasting, there was something about you that was kind of raw and authentic and real about it, that if something was really bothering you, you're going to speak your mind. And how have you been able to maintain that while still also building up your credibility and while maintaining your authenticity? Because I feel like in a lot of these spaces now, you're either having to choose either your authenticity or, maintain your credibility and maintain that professional standard that existed for decades now. But how are you, as a black man who was able to move through all those different fields while still maintaining yourself?
Well, first off, I recognize that I work for Mickey Mouse. I work for Mickey Mouse. Like, there's a different standard when you work for Mickey Mouse. I do think that Disney, Bob Iger's done a great job with the brand. Also, Jimmy Pitaro, the CEO of ESPN. They want you to be authentic towards yourself. But there are limits to that, to a degree. But for me, I just try to be as real as possible within those lines. One of the things we're addressing now that I talk openly about, right? And we have these conversations today. We had on the First Take a debate between Stephen A. Smith and I. It's like, and Max, who's going to get more love, Ja Morant or Zion Williamson at the end of the day, right, this year? And when you pay attention to the media cycle and how that works, right, how much you can dictate news. I don't think people, because we get so consumed in our everyday lives, think about how much your phone is a part of your life, right, Master? So you're on your phone, you read an article, you see a highlight, and then you take away from the highlight, and then you go on with your day, right? But, we did a highlight, and I saw it across the board where we had we showed Zion walking into the building, okay? 10 out of the 13 highlights were Zion. And then at the end, we built a graphic where we compared Zion to Michael Jordan. Now, Zion, this is not Zion's fault. Zion deserves all the love and all the credit. He's phenomenal. He's a beast. Same with Ja Morant, okay? But when you walked away from it, if you're watching this on your phone as you're walking down the streets of New York City or any other city that you're in, you're like, man, Zion killed it. And I'm sitting there saying, well, hold on a second. Oklahoma City won the game, right? And Danilo Gallinari had 29 points. And, so it depends.
Zion's only played, 10 games?
Exactly. Right? But it depends on, the media can also dictate what your takeaway from that game is, and you don't think about what the end result of what actually happened. So the more you work in media, the more you start to see how you can change narratives of the way people consume information. So I think for me, trying to be as real and raw and bring my experiences to the table with guys and with other, business people or what my experiences are, I think shed light across the whole platform as a whole.
How is your evolution from college basketball to the NBA now? Because people may think it's easy because you play basketball, you used to play basketball, you're still talking about basketball, but going from college basketball to the NBA, it's a whole different process of thought, analytical. Like, there's so many different things that you have to adjust to. How were you able to do it?
It's not hard because I'm a hoops junkie anyway. I never looked at basketball as siloed. You know, I think a lot of networks have traditionally looked at that, but I think that ultimate landscape is changing drastically. I think now, since sports are becoming 24/7, 365, like, you know, we're almost in March and we're still talking about football. Like, football is not going to be played for another 6 months, but we're talking about it all year long. We look at basketball as one vertical. Think about, like, I talk about Imani Bates, or you talk about the Knicks. You talk about Zaire, D-Wade's kid. You talk about Bronny James. Like, guys are going to high school games. High school games are being marketed and showed on national TV. These young kids are building brands out from the time they're 14, 15 years old. So you start looking at it from a 360-degree approach of high school, college, and pros. And now with overseas, you follow LaMelo basketball in the Australian League, LaMelo Ball basketball, right? Then you pay attention to what's happening with the G League. The NBA is investing more money in the G League. So now all of a sudden basketball isn't just a 5-month, sport. It's a year-long sport that if you're a hoops head, you're paying attention to it all the time.
But how are you keeping? There's so many layers, especially these days, because there's so much content, so much information, so much access. How do you keep up with this?
I just read. I read all the time. My wife and I wake up in the morning. We try to read for an hour and a half together. But also, I think you have to be realistic. I can't keep up with it all the damn time. I can't. But I think that also pays major dividends when you're on TV and somebody says, well, what are your thoughts about that? And I would say, well, I haven't done enough diligence about that. I don't know. I can't just pop off at the mouth and give you some kind of random take if I don't know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times, now people conflate, like, because everything's extreme. So you wonder, all right, if I have to have some kind of extreme take to a degree, then that take becomes viral. That does wonders for a network or whatever entity, right? Because now you're paying attention to what that network is pushing out. Like, oh, that guy said that, right? But I think one of the things we're losing within sports is practicality, being practical. Like, somebody's like, so the Clippers were able to sign Reggie Jackson today, okay?
Got bought out from the Pistons.
From the Pistons, exactly. And he signed a 5-year, $80 million deal before, and he's on the tail end of this deal. And I got asked today, like, does this make the Pistons a favorite? Are they the favorite to win it right now? Like, I can't tell you that. Well, why not? Right? Because that's a hot take.
Yeah, everyone wants to figure out.
Clippers going to win it right now. Who cares? LeBron, AD, no chance. I'm like, I don't know. Paul George is hurt.
And there's some people that may base it off Kawhi's performance in the MVP All-Star game that may be the swinging factor, and it has nothing to do with any way of how this situation may play out in the playoffs.
So if I were to say that Clippers going to win right now, and then a week later, somebody on the Clippers team gets hurt,
they're going to ask you again. And
that changes, right? Yeah. Right away, right then and there. So I don't know if Paul George is going to be healthy in 2.5 months. He's had 3 hamstring injuries in the past 2 months. I don't know if he's going to endure. I don't know if Reggie Jackson. So, yeah, I can give you insight on why I think the Clippers may win, but that can drastically change. So now I think the approach is different because also as you do more business, you end up doing business with players too, right? So that's been something that's been delicate.
How do you navigate that?
It's challenging, man.
Because you literally got Kevin Durant. He's not shy at all responding back to any reporter whatsoever if he feels like a reporter's not coming correct on him. So how do you navigate that space when you've got active players that you're constantly critiquing or analyzing, but you're also doing business on the back end with them?
I think we both have a very real, transparent relationship that if I said something that bothered him, he'd be like, yo, you're wrong. He'll just say it to me, and we'll get into a debate. And then you walk away with a different perspective, right? And vice versa. Like, I can't tell Kevin Durant how to do his job. He can't tell me how to do my job. We're both partners in what we're building out with the Boardroom. But also, like, I'm very real with Kevin. Look, we're all emotional beings. And the way he deals with his mental health is different than the way other people deal with their mental health. I think it's not my job to defend everything, but it's my job to provide insight on how some of these guys think. Because the way they think is different. Their life is different than your life. You can walk out of here and then go to a deli shop or go to a pizza store, kick it, have a Coke, watch people, and feel normal. They can't feel normal. when you walk outside and people are waiting for you to ask your autograph all the time, or, you know, if you're Kawhi and you're somewhere just hanging out with your boys and somebody behind a DJ booth takes a picture and posts that, how does that affect your bottom line of your business? How does that affect the people that are around you that maybe didn't know where you were at, but you're allowed privacy, he's getting privacy. I don't know what you did last night.
Yeah.
So it changes the way you think about your life overall in general, and it makes you more reclusive and isolated, and it's hard. So sometimes I think people need to understand the complexity of that. And so it's my job to provide insight into that.
How did you deal with that? Not only as a Duke star, someone who played in the NBA, but then also someone who has remained in the limelight with your successes you've had, not only in ESPN, but then also your business ventures as well.
I am not perfect. I make mistakes every day, and I think I try to approach it from that perspective of that I am vulnerable just like anybody else. So if I make a mistake, I'll call myself out on TV. If I make a mistake, I'll be self-deprecating. If I have a take that I think in that moment, just like anybody else, right? Like if I'm having a glass of wine with my wife and I'm watching the game, I can't believe you just did that. And I get hyped up and I press send and it was like, brrr, I'm like, I was wrong. Damn, I was wrong. Hey, y'all, the wine got to my head. I was wrong, my fault, right? So I think the more transparent you can be and real with people, I mean, we're all wrong with all of our takes all the time, right? Obviously, it's my job, but I'm no genie who's reading the future. If I was, I wouldn't be working at ESPN. I would be on a yacht in the south of France because I would have been hitting Vegas hard if I knew what I was all the time. So I think it's just about being real with it.
What other business ventures do you have right now in the process and in the works? It sounds like it's obviously a space to you that means a lot to your, not only near and dear to your heart that you've had, but also just growing up that you've always been around it.
Yeah, so I'm a partner in the Boardroom, which I think is really cool because, I mean, who gets a chance to say they can build content and build a business with people that they admire? Like I admire Rich, I admire Kevin, and we're all friends. So I think that's really cool. A business I wouldn't tell a lot of people to invest in, but I got lucky because I'm doing it with two of my friends here in the city, is I have a restaurant called The Cabin. All right, so my boys go out to the Poconos. It's on the Lower East Side, and my boy Joey has a house, and everybody would chill there, and we just loved it. Right, and like, hey, why wouldn't we bring a cabin-like feel back to New York, where it's cozy, it's warm, you know, quaint food that you can have, comfort food, and you know, strong drinks, and it's really cool, right? Not a great business thing I would tell people to invest in, but still something cool and unique for when I have business meetings in the city. I bring people through there, and we show them love. I think it's great.
Where's it located? You said Lower East Side?
Lower East Side. Yeah, you can check it out. It's The Cabin. It's called The Cabin
what's
on
the
IG.
streets? I got to figure this out.
East 4th. It's cool. You'll like it.
I'll check it out.
So I have that. I got a chance to become a partner in an insurance company because my mom has had a plethora of surgeries dealing with 2 kidney transplants and diverticulitis, and obviously I've had a long stint in the hospital. I've had over 13 surgeries. So understanding that and that world and the complexity of that, and insurance is something that I feel like nobody wants to go through the hassle because it seems very arduous until you have to. Until something happens in your family, or wait a second, how much do I actually have to pay out of pocket here? What's my premium or disability for athletes? I think just having conversations around that are important as you also, if you are in a position to start building out some of your assets or your businesses, are you properly insured with that? I think that's fascinating. So I think now I'm at this really fascinating inflection point. There's only so much I can do, but if I'm able to get equity in certain things and position that self so they do become an annuity one day, I think that's what long-term wealth is to me, right? Investing in people that are way smarter than you are, but if you have a platform that you can leverage it to a certain degree while still taking care of your primary responsibility, that's essentially what you see LeBron doing. That's what you see Tom Brady doing. That's what you see all these incredible athletes doing, while still it's not taking away from their ultimate craft.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm amazed he's able to do all this in a 24-hour day period. It's amazing that you're able to accomplish, and it's so many different fields that you spoke about. I mean, you talked about insurance. Obviously, I don't think anyone in this room had any idea on that, and that's in itself a world that takes so much dedication and devotion just to be a part of. How do you navigate? How do you take time and compartmentalize each one of these different ventures that you're in to make sure that it has the proper nurture and care to continue growing in the way that you want it to?
I think a lot of that is delegation to the people that are actually running it. And I think it is to understand, to pinpoint those times where I am available for this time. Other time I am not available. Right? Like today, I have a wife and I have a child. So for me, not that we naturally do this, and it's not malicious, but if you don't have a significant other, if you don't have a child, like it's just natural for you to take care of yourself, right? And you put all your energy and your effort into yourself. And one of the things that I've been working on with my wife is that, okay, like now my wife and my kid are the priority. And how am I allocating enough time for them throughout the course of the day? And a lot of people always talk about work-life balance. There really is no such thing.
That does not exist.
It does not exist, right? You have to be able to realistically look at the whole picture and say, what is worth my time? Like I posted something I had to talk about the other day. My wife loves listening to Tim Ferriss. We listen to Tim Ferriss all the time on his podcast. And she also got me into Deepak Chopra because I needed to slow my own brain down from spinning. And he would always say something like, what do I want? What do you want? And it's a really fascinating question because I don't think enough people spend time stopping themselves in the matrix of life with all the things that you're dealing with your job, with your family, with life that comes at you in 1,000 miles per hour, to sit and reflect and say, what is it that I want? And actually, how do you recalibrate yourself and start working towards what you want? And then the next day, stop yourself again and say, what do I want? Do I want this? Do I still want this? And am I doing all the right things to help me achieve what I want?
Is that a daily question you ask yourself?
It has to be, because I have to on a daily basis, I have to stop myself. Because if I don't, like I know how my brain works. I also like to work.
Yeah, same.
I get lost and my wife and I, we joke around all the time because I don't really think this is work. My job is to talk about hoops. My job is to connect to some of the most fascinating people in the world. Like, think about the Boardroom. For me, I'm a kid in the candy store. I get a chance to spend an hour with Steve Ballmer and Josh Kroenke.
And 2 Chainz.
And then listen to how 2 Chainz made his money, or Rhapsody, or Steve Stout. I know he has a job with the Knicks. And but he's learning too, right? He was on First Take and that happened. But look, we're talking about the Knicks in a different light, right? So there's some genius to how Steve thinks about his business too, and translation and understanding what their business does. So for me, I'm around brilliant minds and I get a chance to take notes and think about how I want to scale myself and my business. That's a dream come true, man.
That's amazing, man. And we've got 2 questions from the audience here. Before we wrap up here, we'll start off with Glenn for our first question.
How you doing, Jay?
What's up, Glenn?
How you doing?
Good, bro.
If you stand up as well. Yeah, ask a question.
All right. I grew up on the Duke days and the national championships and things like that. When you went into the NBA with the Chicago Bulls, with that injury that ended your career. What you obviously, for any young man, that takes you to a spiral, to a dark place. But what got you out of that place, and what unlocked your mind to the different portals of who you were to get to your post-career?
Dope question. Great question.
Appreciate it.
So much of what we do is psychological. And for me, after my accident, it was very easy to let everybody else's narrative of me be my accident. And it was easy for me to let that be my own narrative, okay? So one of the things that I started doing is I had to retrain my mind that, because I would say things like you just said, right? The accident that ended your career. But then I learned the power of wording, and I was like, no, this accident began my career. Like, it gave me insight into something that was so damn real that it made me more connective to everybody than I could have ever been in my entire life. So it's crazy, because doing this platform, right, it's easy to see how I can get up from doing a sit down with you, Master, right, and then go get in my car and then be home and then spend time with my family, then get in my car the next day, go right into ESPN, spend time with the elite of talking about hoops with Jalen Rose and Paul Pierce, and then get in my car and do a boardroom segment and sit down with Barack Obama. And then, but that's not real life, man. That's not my real life. Is like just walking the street. Like, I got out here and I got off in a taxi. And they're like, you roll up in the taxi? I'm like, yeah, and I take this subway. And I like being boxed out and be like, damn, it's hot up on this subway and it's cold upstairs. Like, these are things that remind me that it's real, it's tangible. So I think the wording of it was imperative, because I think as soon as I started to do that, I saw a change in myself. Because then when people would stop me in the street, like, yo, I'm so sorry for your accident. I'm like, I'm alive, man. And they'd be like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, I know. But like, you wouldn't think about it that way because people think that the accident took something away from me, but damn, I gained so much from it. So it's about how do you use those turning moments in your life to empower you to where you want to go and owning that narrative. Like companies do that. Some of the best companies have been able to do that. Like UPS was like very old school, traditional, right? Like they've updated towards technology and they own the fact that they used to be old school and traditional, but that's what makes you like Apple. I mean, that's what makes you like all the UPS, all these companies that have reinvented themselves by owning their own narrative. Make sense? Cool.
It's a great question. Our second question comes from Devin.
All right, Dev.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so inspiring. So just thank you very much.
Thank you.
My question to you is, outside of your career, outside of your hustle and bustle of everyday life, what are some of your hobbies? What are the fun things that you like to do, whether that be by yourself or with your family? What are some?
So I used to be a big time reader. Used to be my dad in my room. I would have like over 400 books in my room. The first book I ever read was It. I don't know why my dad would let me read the book It by Stephen King as my first book.
It's quite a choice.
But yeah, I used to read all the time, and then I stopped because I started running, and now I think and my wife reads. She's a voracious reader. So, you know, you are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. And
Sound like you chose a good one.
yeah, so and she is definitely the leader of our household. Like I'm CEO by day, but I am not a C-level executive when I walk my foot in my home, and I understand that. So, you know, right now I'm reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, which is really fascinating to understand the inside of how to communicate to somebody and how to take them for value worth, depending upon how long you know somebody. So I like reading. I'm also trying to figure out, I wish we can do like a talk back, because I would love to get anybody in here, their opinion as a parent. I also trying to figure out what my new hobbies are with my daughter, because my daughter is 16 months, right? But it's one of these things that it was challenging as a male, because my wife, and in a way I would get jealous, but I would never show that jealousy. Like my wife, the connection that my wife has with our child is she carried her for so long, that there was that incredible bond that they had. And I think, you know, when my daughter was first born, like I didn't know how to interact with my daughter, right? Because my daughter would cry and she looks towards mommy. I'm like, no, I got you. She's like, I don't want you, right? And now that my daughter is trying to talk, now that my daughter is, running around and falling and picking herself back up, like I find myself really, not that I didn't enjoy the time before, but I think it's been a process for me too, right? And it's really cool to spend, I like quality time. So I think that's becoming one of my biggest habits. You know, if you ever read this book called The 5 Love Languages, I know my wife's is quality time. And like that's becoming my thing with my family. I don't need to plan events. I don't need to go out. Just like being present with them, or talking to my wife about, how was your day? What happened today? And just shutting up and listening to her. You know, she asks me for advice, great. If she doesn't, like it's just her, right? Venting and listening to my daughter go, ba, 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 ba. And like me joking around with her, right? Instead of like I don't know if you guys have this, right? Like I see my man here in the Puma shirt. No, it's fine. It's all good. But like, no, you don't say sorry. It's fine.
It's everyone does it. Yeah.
It's the most addictive thing there is in the world. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but sometimes when I put my phone down, I be getting anxiety. I'm like, did I miss something?
Especially in the industry we're in, you never know when news could break.
You just asked me, you're like, do you ever feel like you miss on things? I'm like I'll come to work the next day at 5 a.m. Like, Jay, did you not see this last night? It happened at 1:30 Eastern time.
The Clippers and Nuggets went to triple overtime.
I'm sleeping. But it always makes you feel like you're behind the 8 ball. So it takes your ability away cognitively to be present in moments. So like it has to be a thing for me where I'm like, nah, in the room, stay there. Nope, thinking about it, right? And I think that's a real life challenge, man. I think the more time I spend doing that, the more it makes me appreciate the people that I can spend time with. So those are the things I'm enjoying.
He's leaving y'all at the gym. Enjoy the quality time you have with people while they're still here.
Yes, 1,000%.
And we'll end on that note. Where can they watch the Boardroom?
Man, it's on ESPN Plus. It's great. Look, Disney, they're doing some great things behind their paywall, ESPN. $4.99 a month, man.
You gonna get a cut. You gonna get a cut of it.
I work for ESPN. I mean, I do want you to buy it. Look, the one thing I will say, man, like live sporting events, like they do, it's really cool stuff. If it's prime time with Chris Berman, it's the rights to UFC. Like all the things they've been able to do, the Boardroom, there's a lot of cool content on there. Detail with Kobe, which I go back and I still watch. And, it's incredible that we get these life lessons by some of these greats. It's really cool.
Absolutely. We got a life lesson here for the last 30 minutes. Thank you for the time, Jay. Really enjoyed it. Give it up to Jay Williams, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching.